Well, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to our lunchtime learning. We're very excited to have our registered dietitian, Michelle Mills, with us today, and she's going to be discussing delivery decisions, dealing with takeout temptations. So welcome, Michelle.
Happy to be here.
So Michelle is loading her PowerPoint. If you're ready for that.
Yes, I'm going to have to, I still can't connect on my laptop, so you'll just get to see me, but I will send out the PowerPoint to you so everybody has access to it.
Okay.
Okay. All right, everybody. So we were just kind of finding some ways to kind of still keep nutrition in mind when we're using delivery systems for food. And we might be getting out to restaurants a little bit more now, but we want to be aware of everybody's comfort level. But something to kind of think about is kind of what's the why? Why do we dine in or go out to eat? What are some of your whys?
Sometimes I'm just too tired to cook when I get home from work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. We're just too tired. We're not in the mood to cook. There's a lot of decision making when it comes to answering that question, what's for dinner? We don't always want to be the person that has to answer that question. So it is easy, it's quick, it's foods that we traditionally enjoy and maybe something that we don't actually prepare for ourselves at home. So we kind of see it as a treat a lot of times. And there's a lot of options that we can use. And just kind of either pick up on the way home or have it delivered to our homes as well. So kind of some things that we might be thinking in our head is that, you know, I have to eat what I have, right? You want to get your money's worth out of what your purchase was. Again, you're too busy or tired to make your own food at home. And maybe you think it's cheaper. You know, you might only have one or two people in your household, and just picking something on the way up or having something delivered is just kind of a great convenience for you. And that concept of I've earned it, you know, you've had a long day, you don't want to go home and prepare anything for yourself. And then some people just don't always watch and pay attention to what's available. If somebody's just being more mindful of their healthy eating, and maybe they just say, you know what, when I eat out, I don't have to worry about that. So we kind of give ourselves the green light a lot of times. So if we kind of think about what kind of cycle we go through with eating out or dining in, is that we don't really have a plan, right? We don't take the time to put that in place and really take some time to look at menus. You know, we just do a quick decision on the restaurant that we go to. We kind of have a small pairing of restaurants that we just know what we want, and so we don't have to worry about it. And so sometimes we're even ordering when we're hungry, right? So we might order more food than what we're thinking about actually consuming ourselves. And then kind of looking at the environment, we might just be eating it out of the container. So there's an option that we might be actually eating more than what we traditionally would be eating. Just remember that we're the portion that we're getting when dining in and ordering out is that they're going to be a lot larger than what maybe what we would plate for ourselves if we made a dish at home. And then the environment, we might just take that to-go container and sit on our couch or chair and watch our favorite program, right? It's kind of the whole decompression that we might have in the evening time. So we kind of all have that, been there, done that. And that's where that cycle just kind of continues to roll with that. But there are some small changes that we can think about and really implement over time to make some different decisions for ourselves. So go in with a plan. You might want to look at your calendar for the week and say, you know what, I'm really busy this coming Wednesday. I'm probably just going to pick up something or have something delivered to my home. That way you can plan for that occasion versus kind of flying by the seat of your pants. Go in with a clear head with that, and then take some time to look at the menu. There's a lot of online resources if we're utilizing anything like Uber Eats or just ordering online from our favorite restaurant. And so just kind of take your time and look at that full menu. And then sometimes, a lot of times the restaurants will pack a menu, print out if you are getting a to-go option. So that's always something to kind of keep handy. Sometimes having something visually in hand is a lot easier to look at and understand versus just always looking online with that. We'll look about different descriptive verbs, and we'll talk about that in a minute. And then consider about calling your order in versus just doing it online. Take some time with that person so that you can make modifications with that versus just relying on kind of the standard as is order if you're just clicking some buttons on the computer. So when we're looking at ordering 101 is look at the full menu on maybe your laptop or desktop or iPad versus your phone, right? Phones are very handy, and they're that mini computer that we have in our hands probably more often than what we want. But sometimes we can't really see everything, or they might have a limited menu versus just kind of having access to maybe like a full document with that. See if the nutrition information is available online. So we might be looking at things and being specific if we're watching, the sodium amount in our diet. Maybe we might be focusing on making sure we're getting enough protein. So you have access. Most restaurants do have that full nutrition guide online. They should have it available for you at the restaurant. There are some caveats is that it has to be a larger chain. So kind of your mom and pop is not going to be required to have that information, but more of your streamlined things like Rusty Bucket, Applebee's, things in that nature, they'll have that information available to you. And again, you can really kind of look at the calories, the sodium, the salt, the sugar, the fat, all that stuff that we might be a little bit more mindful of when we're ordering out. And then kind of think about how things have been written, looking at those descriptive words. So if something's crunchy, crispy, most likely that's probably going to be fried, right? They're not really saying crispy vegetables if it's a raw vegetable side dish that you can order. Thinking about other things that might be added into, so creamy or cheesy, that's probably going to be a higher fat sauce or added cheese to a dish that's going to increase that fat and calorie level. Some other things to consider with dining out is maybe you just want to skip the appetizers. We don't always get appetizers when we go out to eat or order in, but that's something that tends to be kind of quick and easy, right? So a lot of those foods are going to be fried in their cooking preparation and really increase those calories and most of that coming from fat itself. Consider the beverages. Do you want to have something else other than water? And really kind of consider the calories that are coming with that. Because most calories from beverages, unless it's a milk, is really just going to be coming from sugar. So really kind of consider how you want to work those in. Water can be kind of boring at times, so maybe asking for some lemon or lime on the side and seeing if the restaurant maybe has a carbonated water just to give you some different texture and flavor. That could be an option. Sometimes I take in my own packets of water flavorings, and I just add that into my water at the table. So just something to kind of think about. We usually have our purses with us. And then kind of can look at those other descriptive words on how the food's being prepared. Has it been baked, broiled, roasted? Or with our vegetables, have they been steamed? So kind of think of those options. A lot of times we assume that these foods are getting prepared how we would prepare them at home, and that's not always the case. So I always give the example of vegetables because a lot of times they're going to be adding some type of butter sauce before they come out to you. So that's why they might taste a little bit better than what we would make ourselves. So just ask to have them just steamed and that's it. And they can make that accommodation for you. Looking at sauces and dressings. So again, those are probably going to be more of a fat source. So some things to consider, as always, maybe just have those on the side because then you can portion out how much you want to add. You don't always have to go low fat on dressings per se. If you rather have a traditional ranch dressing, go ahead and have that. Maybe just put a little less on with that considered. And then some other things to kind of think about is maybe just using your own. So if you're ordering in and they ask what kind of dressing, maybe say skip the dressing because you have your own dressing in your fridge, right? So we have a little bit more accessibility if we're kind of bringing foods into our home with that. Just some general substitutions that you might already be aware of, but just want to have you guys refocus on is that when we're looking at proteins, we still want to focus on those lean proteins. So chicken, fish, seafood types of dishes are usually going to be lower in fat compared to your beef dishes. And we are doing beef, just try to do more of a sirloin or think about if you want to do more of a traditional steak, maybe you split it. So you don't have to worry about having that excess amount. Maybe having an option of just ordering 2 vegetables for your side dishes. Maybe it's going to be a salad, and then you have your other option of doing, you steam broccoli, for instance. If you have the option, maybe switch your fries to a baked potato on occasion if you would like. And then thinking about different whole grains. So sometimes even restaurants that are doing pasta, they may have a pasta alternative, whether it's going to be a whole wheat pasta, or they might be doing something with like zoodles or spaghetti squash. So there are some restaurants that have those options available now. And then, you know, we're getting to the spring and summer months, so you might start seeing fruit options as a side dish. So that's always something that you can utilize moving forward. And so now we kind of have to think about the home environment, right? So we either bring that takeout home or it gets delivered to us. Really kind of think about how your environment is going to impact. So again, instead of just consuming it out of the actual to-go container, go ahead and plate it for yourself. You know, you're going to really be able to assess how much food is there. And that gives you an opportunity to actually pack some food away for the next day, right? So we always kind of think insight and stomach. So if we're presented with a lot of food, studies have really shown that we tend to eat more, whether we have already surpassed our hunger levels on that. And then you could always think about splitting a main dish, right? So if you have somebody else there with you, a good opportunity was just to go ahead and split the dish. So my husband and I do that often. We might get a Mexican dish, like the fajitas, and there's enough lean protein side dishes that we can just kind of have that split for between us, and then we might have a salad on the side just to increase that volume with that. The other things to kind of think about is where we're eating our food. A lot of times we might just be grabbing our food and sitting in our favorite spot in the living room and then turning on the TV. So that is more of a distracting eating pattern. So again, we might be overeating and not really noticing it until afterwards, and then we're uncomfortable. And some things to kind of think about is what we're watching on TV. So if it's a more, you know, stressful, suspenseful movie or television, you know, we might be actually noticing that, and we might be actually eating more. So just something to kind of be aware about with that. So as much as possible, sitting at a designated spot. Also, reading can be kind of a distraction, but again, you might be eating more as a result. So I always encourage, instead of being dead silent, is just make sure you have some nice music playing in the background, sitting at your kitchen counter island or sitting at the kitchen table, and kind of debriefing your family of your day and kind of getting that dialogue going on, because we are very culturally centered around food, and usually we're sitting around with other people. So just kind of catch up on their day and make it more of a social engagement with that. And then other things to think about really is that use that takeout dish as a base, but find ways to add more things to it. So maybe you're just kind of pulling in some vegetables or adding a salad, because you have a lot more things available to your fridge, freezer, and pantry that you can really kind of enhance the dish itself. So maybe you don't worry, the chef is giving you some flavor, but then you don't ask for the sauce or dressing because you have your personal favorites, you know, at your fingertips in your own kitchen. So those are just some kinds of things to kind of take away with eating healthy, whether it's ordering in or even, you know, kind of going out to eat, if that's what we're starting to do nowadays, especially with the nicer weather. Hopefully there'll be opening up some more outside dining times and areas so we can enjoy the sun too. So that's kind of what I had to present today. So I wanted to have some time to kind of leave it open to you guys for questions.
So I have a question. One of the things that I love to do is, for going out, is doing something out of the ordinary. One of those places would be like Chinese, Mexican, things like that. How do, particularly in Chinese, how do you pick what's better for you in it? Because I mean, everything there is just sauce laden, and just it's got a lot of vegetables usually, but it's, you know, I don't know what's good and what isn't.
Yeah, so a lot of times with that, with Chinese dishes, because sometimes it's really kind of hard to break down a traditional Chinese dish. So I would first kind of start to see if they have a brown rice or a whole grain noodle as your base. You're absolutely right, James, that they are going to have a lot more vegetables. So even asking them to add in double vegetable compared to what they would traditionally do with the dish that you're ordering. And you may just want to say to go light on the sauce, and then maybe they can put some to the side for you so that, what it's been cooked in is going to give you that flavor, but it's not going to be heavy, kind of dripping in sauce, because traditionally those sauces are probably going to be a little bit higher in salt, but also in sugar. And sometimes we don't really account for that just because they taste salty, but there's probably some type of sugar in that as well. And then something else to think about is to honestly maybe talk with the owner, because they might be able to tell you what's in the sauce, whether they're making it themselves or if it's like a pre-bought option. So that's always something else to consider when we're doing Chinese. When it comes to actually also with Chinese dishes, just make sure that they're not frying the protein that you've selected. A lot of times we kind of miss that, and they actually might have a breading, so we understand that that's a fried option. See if they can just kind of sear it in the stir frying process versus that fried option. When it comes to Mexican, any specific dishes that you traditionally get when you're out for Mexican or ordering in?
Well, it kind of depends on the mood, but I love burritos. But I know those are like some of the worst you can get. I also love fajitas, and I think if I get generally a mixed fajita, but I try to do like more chicken fajitas or shrimp fajitas as opposed to beef. So, but I think my thought is that a better option than going with like burritos that's got sauce and stuff all over it, or chimichangas or things like that. Is that a better choice?
Yeah. It would be. So when we're looking at fajitas, they're going to be more sauteed and cooked in that way. When we're looking at some other dishes, like the chimichanga or enchilada, those ones are usually fully deep fried. So again, kind of reading the description of the dish can be really helpful. And then just kind of looking at the side dishes. So maybe instead of doing rice and beans, maybe you get 2 different beans. So sometimes they have refried beans as well as black beans. So you can swap those out. The carbohydrate level is not going to be dramatically different swapping out a different set of beans versus rice, but you're going to increase the protein as well as the fiber content with that swap. And I think what kind of gets us at Mexican restaurants, and even when we're ordering in on those options, is that they're going to give us those chips and salsa at the beginning.
Yeah.
So if we can't, reduce that temptation and only have a few, maybe just have them not put that on your table. We may have the best intentions to stay away, but sometimes your hand just goes into that chip basket. Yeah. But trying different, you can always substitute their sauces as well, and just have extra salsa instead of just doing like the cheese sauce that traditionally comes with like the burrito or chimichanga kind of option too. So that could be another quick swap out as well.
Staying on the Mexican theme, Michelle, what are your thoughts of flour versus corn when it comes to tortillas and burritos?
Yeah, so it kind of depends on the restaurant. So a regular corn hard shell is going to be fried, so there might be a little bit more fat if you kind of just look at the store and look at a corn hard taco versus a flour. Now, if somebody has a gluten sensitivity or a gluten allergy, then doing a corn tortilla would be the best option for them. But some more traditional Mexican restaurants may still have a corn tortilla that's actually more of a soft taco than the traditional crunchy. So you could kind of switch over to that. They're going to be pretty much similar again from a calorie perspective. Again, that corn tortilla might be a little bit higher in fat because it's been baked or fried. So those would be some things to kind of be aware of. It's usually the quantity. So a lot of times if I get the fajita and my husband and I split it, I let him do the tortillas. I take more of the beans and rice. And then, so I don't have all three, but I still don't really decrease my overall volume that I'm consuming. So always comes some switch outs there too.
One more question.
Sure.
Sushi. Is it good? Is it bad? Are things I should be looking for if we're doing sushi? I love sushi.
Yeah. So there's definitely some great options when it comes to sushi. You know, I still think it's a great option. We just have to watch how much we eat. It depends on how adventurous we get with our sushi selections, because some foods options are still going to have some fried components to it. So if you can still stick more to the raw options, that's going to be a great option. You are still consuming rice in a traditional sushi roll, but it's still not going to be, you know, as much as, you know, maybe if we got, you know, the pint of rice with our Chinese dish. I think it's a great way to get in fish options that we maybe don't normally do. So I still think it's a good option. We might want to watch, you know, the sodium coming from the soy sauce. So a lot of options, you can usually get the low sodium to it. They do have some different sauces that are going to be more mayonnaise based. So as long as you're not adding additional, I wouldn't say you're getting a lot on the drizzle that they have on top.
Some sushi is wrapped in seaweed, and I don't know if it also has rice or not, but is seaweed beneficial?
It can be. It has a little bit of nutritional quality to it. I couldn't give you the full breakdown off the top of my head. But it is kind of like a dark green plant. So you're getting some probably vitamin C as well as some B vitamins and vitamin E out of it. Maybe a little bit of fiber since we're eating kind of the whole plant.
It also helps the roll to stay together, so it's a little easier to eat.
Excuse me. Yes, it does. And there are some different options. Sometimes you might get a sushi roll that's wrapped in like rice paper. So again, it's very thin, but it is probably going to increase the carbohydrate slightly compared to just doing seaweed. Not dramatically, but just something to kind of consider.
Well, one of my restaurant complaints is that I prefer to get a baked sweet potato over a baked white potato. And a lot of restaurants do not offer it. And my other restaurant complaint is it's pretty rare for me to find a restaurant that has the whole grain pasta. And I guess you can't recommend particular restaurants, but I do look for both of those and they're hard to find.
It can be. And I think, you know, the restaurant industry, you know, sometimes it takes a little bit longer to catch on to maybe trends that we're seeing in the grocery store and buying for our homes. I will say when it comes to a potato and we're comparing that to a sweet potato, the calories coming from carbohydrate, fat, and protein are going to be very similar. We're getting the extra bonus of our A vitamins when it comes to the sweet potato. And then some of the things to think about is maybe we split the baked potato because they tend to be larger than what we're buying to keep in our own homes. And then a lot of times what we do with the baked potato is that we add a lot of extra sour cream, butter. So, you know, try to keep it as basic as possible when you're ordering it. The other thing that we don't always consider is that a lot of times at steakhouses, they're actually going to roll that potato in salt. Because again, you know, that salt can kind of pull out some flavor. So you may ask just to see if they have one that they haven't done that to, and order your condiments on the side, and then you can add how much to that potato, whether it's the sweet potato or the regular one. The whole wheat pasta, yes, you're right. It's going to be kind of dependent on the restaurant. I will try to think of some places that I know that I've gotten the whole wheat pasta before. But again, you know, sometimes with Italian, it's kind of going back to the concept of that we tend to just order a dish of spaghetti with some marinara sauce. So we may want to kind of pull in some protein, whether we get some chicken on the side or we get some, maybe like 1 or 2 meatballs, and then we can do the less amount of pasta. And then again, that extra bread that they put on the table. So it's some things to kind of tailor your options that way too. Because I have to look at hunger from after we've consumed it too, right? Because sometimes pasta, it can be very filling, but not as lasting. Honestly, same with sushi, you can get really full, but it doesn't take us long to process all of those types of things. So then we might notice that hunger comes back a little bit more frequently. So just something else to kind of keep in mind to see what really is satisfying for you as well. So maybe you add in a soup. A broth-based soup in either of those occasions too. What other questions do we have for today? Has anybody been noticing that they're eating in more, but doing kind of a pickup service or using different delivery services? And pros and cons on those that you've noticed personally.
Well, we do carry out quite frequently, and,
Mm-hmm.
and we don't do delivery, mainly because my husband likes to go and pick it up himself. And where we live, there's a sea of restaurants all around us. So we have a wide variety that we choose from frequently.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I definitely think it's kind of a pick and choose your own. I personally like to go pick mine up. It gets me out of the house, but a quick return. And then a lot of times I think about like a delivery service, they might be delivering multiple places. So maybe you might be the last one on the route. So your food quality might change because of that transportation time with that too. But we still want to make sure that we're still enjoying the foods. Going out tends to maybe either kind of coordinate even with a celebration for yourself or somebody from your friends and family pool. So just be aware, a lot of times looking ahead at the menu can be helpful because menus can be very daunting. I always kind of give Cheesecake Factory as a reference because I haven't been there in a while, but I felt like they just gave you a huge book to go through. It wasn't really a menu. They just had pages upon pages. And that's another thing to kind of think about. If a restaurant has a large variety, really kind of consider that, can the kitchen really have that capacity? If you had to cook American and Italian and Mexican types of foods in your home all at once, would you maybe do some shortcuts? So you might even be kind of astonished as to how many prepared foods that restaurants may use because they have such a large variety. So that's also something to kind of consider. If you're at a restaurant that you can look at and they have like that open kitchen style, kind of take a peek and kind of see what's going on. Does it look like there's a lot of cooking going on, or does it look like more of a heat and serve kind of setup? So just something else to kind of think about. Variety can cost in another way. And so if it's more of a kind of a heat and serve kind of thing, they might have pre-cooked chicken breasts and other pre-cooked foods. And what happens is that it's just going to be a higher salt content more than likely because it's a kind of what we call prepared food.
Well, I have another comment regarding pizza. I recently discovered a pizza option that I had not heard of before, and I understand it's been around for a long time, but I just didn't know about it. So it is called margarita pizza. And at least the one place where I've had it, it consists of a lot of crushed tomatoes and little spots of fresh mozzarella. And it, at least a sodium aside, it at least appears to me to be a much healthier choice than the regular traditional pizza where the top is completely covered with cheese. Do you have any comparison comments on that?
Sure. So I would say that, and I knew you were going to say margarita pizza. I don't know how I read your mind on that one, but that was the first thing that came to mind. So Yeah, so there might be less actual cheese potentially. If we went weight for weight, to be kind of interesting to kind of see if there was a possible difference. But again, mozzarella cheese is typically going to be a little bit lower in saturated fat, just on how it's made. You're not going to get a protein source, but pizza and protein sources are a little tricky, that we've talked about probably in the past, is that it's typically a processed meat, right? Pepperoni, sausage, ham, maybe on a ham and pineapple pizza. So I really encourage people to do veggie pizzas as much as they can, and maybe use that leftover chicken from the night before and use that as your protein source. Maybe go a little bit light on the pepperoni. A lot of times pizzerias definitely talk about they have the most pepperoni on their pizza, right? Goes back to more bang for our buck. But we have to kind of look at how that fits into our overall health goals too. So the margherita pizza is probably going to be a little bit lighter, just because it, like you said, Anne, it's going to have the crushed tomatoes, the basil, and the fresh mozzarella slices on top. So I still think it's a nice refreshing dish. It's not as heavy as maybe a traditional pizza that we're used to. Some other options to kind of consider that we talked about last week in Cancer Wellness or 2 weeks ago, I'm sorry, with our pizza dish is that they have different types of crusts. Yeah. So something to think about, doing a traditional crust is that it's going to be thick and doughy. Maybe just flipping over to a thin crust is going to kind of save you a little bit on calories, and then kind of lower on carbohydrate selections. Some places actually have a whole wheat pizza crust, so check that out to see if that's available in your area. Definitely people are getting more into cauliflower pizza crust as well, which we do have a recipe online that you guys can check out. Again, that's an opportunity to have a conversation with that pizza place to really see, does that cauliflower crust just have some extra cauliflower as an ingredient, or is the cauliflower the actual base of the pizza? So there's many ways to make the cauliflower crust, and there's many ways to say and call a more of a traditional pizza crust a cauliflower pizza crust. So just double check in. I would presume they're probably getting that pre-done and just getting in a frozen option. Not necessarily the case, but cauliflower pizza crust take a little bit longer to produce, and depending on the pizzeria, it might be a little bit different.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Has anybody looked up the nutrition information to see if it is available on some of the restaurants? We take a peek, or we just
Panera and
what
Bob
do we
Evans.
think? What do we find out?
You can do that with both Panera and Bob Evans, probably lots of others too.
Yeah. Was anything surprising, or did it kind of solidify what you were already thinking?
I have to say the nutritional information on Panera lunches, I was very surprised at the high amounts of sodium in almost all of their dishes.
Yeah.
It's other than a salad, your sandwiches and all of that have a lot of sodium. Yeah. That's what was really surprising.
Yeah. I honestly don't think that's a great, thing that you shared, because again, if we kind of looked at Panera and we look on how things are likely prepared, their soups are probably not homemade. So they're going to be a higher sodium. If we're looking at the proteins on their salads as well as their sandwiches, they're going to be more cold cuts. Even if we looked at the chicken breast, those are probably already been prepared. They're not grilling it like they are at Chipotle, maybe. So yeah. Yep. We would love to think that everybody makes dishes how we would at home, but unfortunately that may not always be the case.
But do you find the Impossible Burger to be something you would recommend over a traditional hamburger?
Can I flip the question back to you, Anne, on why you would pick the Impossible Burger over a regular burger? What goals do you think you would be able to meet with that switch? Anything that comes to mind?
Well, first of all, feeling better about what you're getting. Nutritionally, maybe less fat, but I suppose it's still grilled like a regular hamburger.
Mhm.
I don't know.
Okay. No, and that just goes back to when people think things are healthier. Everybody has a different definition for themselves on what is healthier. And so when we're comparing a traditional burger to any type of meatless burger, so we can talk about the Impossible Burger. It's not anything I have had personally. I always like to look at the labels. So because an option is meat-free, it doesn't always automatically equal a better, maybe more nutrient dense option. So something to consider with these types of meatless burgers is like, what else is in there? So if you would look at the Impossible Burger, they're going to have a lot of extra things in there because they really want their product to resemble a traditional, raw meat. And so that is going to come more in the concept of, nutrition, but also kind of food science on how do you make this look like beef, because a lot of turnoff can be is that it doesn't look like what I'm trying to replace it with. So it's going to have a higher fat content or a very similar fat content to, regular hamburger meat. If we're comparing like an 85-15, a 90-10 split of ground beef is going to be your leanest option, and it's probably going to have potentially less fat than the Impossible Burger if we're comparing the same amount, size. The Impossible Burger, I believe, uses coconut oil as a way to kind of keep it together, and it's going to add some moisture and some texture and flavor to that. So coconut oil is going to be a saturated fat, so you're not going to see a big difference on the amount of fat and likely where that fat is coming from. So for me, vegan or meatless burgers, they tend to be or have the potential to be more processed than us getting, ground beef, ground chicken, or ground turkey, so that's going to be more of a whole food source comparing to some other, prepackaged foods.
Wow.
So it's a really long answer, but did I answer your question?
Surprises. Well, how would you compare a veggie burger to what you just said then? Or would you consider Impossible Burger to actually be a veggie burger?
Yes, so it is considered, well, it's a meatless burger, I guess is a better way to put it. I don't know that they truly have veggies in theirs. So if you were to make your own burger, a meatless burger was actually something I kind of posed to the chefs as a challenge, because it's really simple to make your own versus relying on prepackaged options. So sometimes a meatless burger is simply that. They are using something like a soy protein, instead of true, beef. There are some veggie burgers that might just be all veggies. So they don't necessarily have a true protein source, or they might work in some beans or again, tofu as their protein composition. So a veggie burger may just be made with veggies and probably some form of carbohydrate. Again, it's kind of a binder, where a meatless burger is probably still going to have a protein source, but may not always have some veggies in it.
So you just can't always win.
Yeah, it kind of depends on what question we're trying to solve. So if you don't want to consume animal meat, then a meatless burger is going to be an option for you. We just want to make sure we're still getting some nutritional quality out of that change.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Sorry for the long response.
Oh, it's helpful.
Lots to dissect. No, because a lot of times when we're looking at labels or, going through the menus and they say gluten-free, it just means it doesn't have gluten in it. So really kind of see what they're trying to describe to you. And, if something doesn't make sense, talk to the person that you're ordering from, if it's a dine-in situation or a carry-out situation, or if you're going out to eat, have your server, ask them questions. And if they don't know, then they can talk with, the chef and the everybody in the back to really get those questions answered. It's better than assuming and then not getting what you want. Right? So just something to kind of think about. What else is out there, everybody? Did we hit all genres of food? There's always certain ones that come to play when we're trying to eat healthy, when we're dining out. And I think a lot of times just being more aware can help you make slight modifications, because going out to eat or dining in, sometimes it can be feeling rewarding because we don't have more work to do, or we're going out to chat with somebody that we haven't seen in a while. So we don't always have to be on point, right? I always talk about that all food can be incorporated. It doesn't mean that we eat fast food Monday through Sunday either, right? We're still looking for that nutrient quality of food, and really knowing, when you're satisfied, what satisfies you, because sometimes we go out for our favorite dish, and you know what, they might have changed it and it just doesn't sit right or doesn't feel right. So really kind of see how foods make you feel afterwards so that you can make adjustments moving forward, because we don't want to put, if I eat something and it doesn't feel right, like I want to acknowledge that. So then the next time that I'm picking up, a to-go order, I don't want to order the same thing and put misery back into play for myself.
Well, here's another question, and I think it sounds strange, but here it is. For years, I had heard that it's a good idea to drink a glass of water before you sit down to a meal, and that helps to give you a bit of a feeling of less hunger or a slight fullness before you shovel the food in. But I recently heard that that is not a good idea because that prevents you from absorbing the nutrients of the food. Does this make any sense to you?
There might be some potential. So definitely the rule of thumb of drinking something before you sit down and eat is that you are going to fill up your stomach for a period of time. Your body's going to absorb that water, fairly rapidly. It's not going to sit in your stomach extremely long. It shouldn't impact the nutrient absorption. The only way that could potentially happen is that you drink a lot of water and it kind of empties your stomach faster. So, there could be slight potential for that. I don't think it is extreme that you're losing out on a significant amount of the nutrition density in that, meal.
So would you say it's a good idea to drink a glass of water before having a full meal?
I think it works for some people. It doesn't work for all. So I think it's an opportunity to maybe experiment. And if you find that you eat less because you drink 8 ounces of water, I think that's fine. I think a lot of times that our cues get mixed up and that we haven't drank enough, but we actually take that signal as that we're hungry. So sometimes we have to be aware of, am I drinking enough fluids kind of throughout the day? And then when it comes to overeating, did you wait a longer time than what your system's used to in between, your meals or the last time that you had something to eat? So we don't want to eat when we're starving. We want to eat before that as much as possible. We can't always have something available to us, but that could be working in some snacks, and that's just going to be based on somebody's hunger pattern overall. Some people eat a couple times a day, some people eat 5 to 6 times a day. It just really kind of depends on that individual person. So I'm not saying a hard no to the water beforehand, and I'm not saying a hard yes.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Anything else? Any tricks that you guys have found that has been beneficial that you want to share? And do you just eat out and enjoy and move on? Because that's totally fine too. I'm not here to say that certain foods are bad. Just sometimes we can make modifications when possible.
thank you for the information.
You're very welcome.
I've got a lot of notes here, so I'll take them
Good.
home to my wife and we'll
Good.
talk
I'm
about it.
glad. Take some time to go back. Yeah. We can't observe everything at once. That's for sure. I'm glad you were able to take some notes.
Well, I appreciate it.
Sure. You're very welcome.
And we'll also be forwarding Michelle's PowerPoint that due to technology, she couldn't share today, but everybody who attended will get a copy of that. So you'll have her notes as well to add to yours, Dana.
Sounds good.
I have a question for you, Darlene. When you record programs such as this one and others that you record, where are they available to be viewed later?
That's an excellent question, Ann. Thank you for bringing that up. We are working on having a video library on our website, but that's a slow process. So currently we have a couple of our videos on the website, but all of them live on our YouTube channel. If you go to YouTube and you just type in Cancer Support Community Central Ohio, all of our education videos, our cooking for wellness, some of our interviews that we've had with Angie and other different participants throughout the years are on that. So eventually they'll all live on the website, but at this point in time, you'll definitely find them on YouTube.
Okay, and then when you do achieve that, will you make an announcement?
Oh yeah, we'll be, on the Friday emails or on the website, say, here's the video home. But it's going to be a little while down the road yet.
Sure. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. So we have a couple more minutes. If anybody has any questions for Michelle, this is your wonderful opportunity of asking a dietitian a one-on-one question. And not just any dietitian, but a dietitian who is well-versed in cancer support communities, culture, and our nutritional goals that we have for our participants.
Do you have a recommendation on the best breakfast to eat, or should it be a variety of things at different days, different foods? I know oatmeal things. But
Yeah. So variety of food is always good because you're always going to pull different nutrients from different foods. So kind of goes back to, eating different colors of fruits and veggies. We want to pull that into eating, multiple types of foods. When it comes to breakfast, I think there's always an opportunity to work in some protein. So you gave a great instance of having oatmeal in the morning. We tend to think of carbohydrate-based foods, quick things, right? Because we're trying to get out the door or we're not always hungry when we first wake up. So I think oatmeal is a great option. A couple ways to increase the protein to that is, looking at your oatmeal option, because there is going to be some protein in our plant-based foods. It's not going to be as much as our, animal sources like eggs or, things in that nature. But you could always use like a low-fat milk, because that's going to give you some protein. You could even incorporate a little bit of peanut butter or any type of nut butter that you like. A lot of times I've actually used peanut butter powder. So PB2, PB Fit, Kroger and Giant Eagle have their own powdered peanuts. So it's going to be a lower fat source, but it's going to give you some protein and some nice, peanut butter flavor, which is always nice. But I think working in some eggs on occasion is always good. We want to watch the consumption of those processed meats like sausage and bacon. But doing some fruit and yogurt with a little bit of, low-fat granola, or maybe not even doing granola, maybe doing some crushed walnuts or almonds or cashews with that too, because you're going to get the protein from the yogurt. You're going to get some great vitamin sources, mineral sources from the fruit, as well as fiber, and then adding in some heart-healthy fat with your, almonds or walnuts.
Thank
So
you.
variety, I think, is key. Some people can get up and eat oatmeal every day, whether it's January or June, and other people need something new every day. So give you a couple of options.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome. anything else, just general questions. Doesn't have to be related to dining out or eating in. All right, I guess
Well,
we answered all
Michelle,
the
we
questions
are
for
greatly
today.
appreciative of you taking your lunch hour to give
Sure.
your presentation on the delivery decisions, takeout temptations. Thank you to everybody who has joined us today. I will be sending out an email with a link to a SurveyMonkey evaluation. Michelle is volunteering her time today, but we do have grants that help underwrite and support our free programming, and the feedback that we get from our evaluations on our education program allow us to be able to continue offering the lunchtime learning. So we are very appreciative of Michelle and her sharing of her time and her expertise, and thank everybody for joining us this afternoon. And please look for that email with Michelle's PowerPoint, but then a second email with the evaluation link. So I hope everybody has a wonderful rest of their Wednesday.